If you had asked me 20 years ago what my most valuable asset was, I'd probably have said my career. I spent decades building it, investing in it, and believing that if I worked hard enough, everything else would eventually fall into place. Looking back, I don't think I was unusual. Most of us grow up believing that success is about collecting more money, more achievements, more qualifications, more possessions. We spend years trying to build a better life without ever stopping to ask whether we are actually spending our lives on the right things. Getting older forced me to look at my life differently. I realized that while I could always earn more money, I couldn't earn another year. That realization was completely changed how I value my time. The older I get, the more I realize that the second half of life isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about removing things that no longer deserve your attention. So today, I want to share 6 things that I genuinely believe become a complete waste of time after 50. Not because someone wrote them in a self help book, but because I've lived enough life to know how expensive these habits can become. This is Steve, and here's my number one. For years, I thought I was being sensible. I tell myself that certain things could wait because life was busy. I'd start exercising properly once work settled down. I would travel more when I had fewer financial commitments. I would learn new skills when I finally had some spare time. Every delay sounded perfectly reasonable. And because it sounded reasonable, I never questioned it. The problem is that life doesn't become less complicated. It simply gives you different complications. One project finishes and another one appears. The children grow up, but your parents need more support. Work changes, but technology changes. Your priorities change. If you're always waiting for the perfect moment, you'll eventually discover that you've spent years waiting for a day that never actually arrived. I realized that when I started this YouTube channel, I had thought about doing something like this for a very long time, but there was always another excuse. I needed better equipment, or I needed to learn more about editing. I needed to understand the algorithm. Looking back, none of those things were the real reason. The truth was much simpler. I was waiting until I felt 100% confident. And confidence doesn't work like that. Every worthwhile thing I've done in my life has started before I felt ready. The first management role I accepted felt overwhelming. Changing companies felt uncomfortable. Starting this channel felt uncomfortable too. The confidence only arrived because I kept showing up, making mistakes, and improving one step at a time. After 50, I don't think we can afford to spend years waiting for ideal circumstances. If there is something you've wanted to do for a very long time, ask yourself an honest question. Are you genuinely preparing for it, or are you simply postponing it? There's a huge difference. Preparation has a finish line. Procrastination disguises itself as preparation and quietly steals years from your life. Instead of waiting until everything feels perfect, start while it still feels slightly uncomfortable. You'll probably discover that progress has been waiting on the other side of that first step all along. Here's another thing that I consider to be a complete waste of time: letting your career become your identity. This is probably the lesson that hit me the hardest because most of my adult life I didn't even realize I was doing it. Think about how often we introduce ourselves. We don't usually start by talking about the kind of person we are. We say, I'm an engineer, I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor. Somewhere along the way, our job quietly becomes our identity, and because it happens so gradually, we rarely notice it. For nearly 30 years, my career gave me structure, purpose, and direction. There was nothing wrong with that. I enjoyed my work. I worked with good people, and I was happy with it, and I was proud of what I had achieved. The mistake wasn't caring about my career. The mistake was allowing it to become such a large part of how I saw myself that I struggled to imagine life without it. Redundancy has a way of exposing that. One day, you've got a title. a routine and a place where people expect you to be every morning. The next day, all of that disappears. That's when you realize that if your identity is built entirely around your career, losing that job feels like losing part of yourself. Looking back, I wish I had invested more time in developing the parts of me that had nothing to do with work. That's one of the reasons I enjoy creating these videos so much. It's allowed me to discover another side of me. I enjoy sharing experiences, helping people navigate difficult periods in their lives, and having conversations that have nothing to do with corporate job titles. Your career can be incredibly important, but it shouldn't be the only thing that defines you. Jobs end, companies change, retirement eventually arrives for all of us. Who you are as a person needs to be bigger than whatever is printed on your business card. After 50, it's worth asking yourself a simple question. If your job disappeared tomorrow, what parts of your life would still give you purpose? If that question is difficult to answer, perhaps that's where your time should be going next. Another thing that I consider as a complete waste of time after 50 is tolerating energy vampires. I know it sounds a little bit creepy, but I will explain. One thing I've become much more protective of after 50 isn't my money, it's my energy. When you're younger, you can recover quite quickly from spending time with difficult people. You put up with the colleague who's always negative, the friend who only ever calls when they need something, or the family member who somehow turns every conversation into a drama. You tell yourself that's just part of life and that you're being a good person by putting up with it. The problem is that those little interactions keep adding up. You finish a lunch feeling exhausted instead of encouraged. You hang up the phone wondering why every conversation leaves you carrying somebody else's problems. You start noticing that certain people always seem to take from your emotional bank account without ever making a deposit. I've become much more aware of that over the last few years. It's not that I've become less compassionate or less willing to help people. In fact, I think I've become more understanding. The difference is that I've stopped confusing kindness with unlimited availability. There are people who genuinely need support, and I'm happy and always here to give it to them when I can. Then there are people who seem to create chaos wherever they go, expect everyone else to fix it, and leave you feeling completely drained every single time you see them. I'm sure you're now thinking of many people in your life that do that. That's not a friendship. That's an emotional subscription you never agreed to. After 50, I think it's perfectly reasonable to become more selective about who gets access to your time and, of course, who gets access to your energy. Spending more time with people who leave you feeling inspired, supported, and appreciated. That's what you should be doing. Distance yourself from those who constantly leave you feeling exhausted. That isn't selfish. It's recognizing that your energy, just like your time, is a finite resource. The better you protect it, the more you'll have to give it to the people who genuinely deserve it. Another thing that could also be a complete waste of time is worrying about what other people think. If there is one thing that has become easier with age, it's caring less about opinions that don't really matter. I wish I could tell you I learned that lesson in my 30s, but the truth is it took much longer than that. When we're younger, we're constantly looking for approval. We worry about whether people think we are successful enough, clever enough, or interesting enough. We compare ourselves to friends, neighbors, and colleagues without even noticing we're doing it. Social media has only made that worse because we are now comparing our ordinary Tuesday with somebody else's carefully edited highlights. I remember thinking long and hard before I started making videos. I wonder what former colleagues might think if they come across my channel. Would they find it strange? Would they think I'd completely changed direction? Those thoughts sat in the back of my head far longer than they should have been. Then something hit on me. The people who genuinely cared about me would probably be pleased that I was trying something new. The people who wanted to criticize me would always find something to criticize, regardless of what I did. Once I accepted that, it became much easier to press record instead of worrying about opinions I couldn't control. One of the unexpected freedoms that comes with getting older is realizing that most people aren't paying nearly as much attention to you as you think they are. They're worrying about their own careers, their own families, and their own problems. You're simply not the center of the world in the way you sometimes imagine yourself to be. So instead of asking yourself whether everyone else will approve of your decisions, ask whether you'll approve of them 5 years from now. That's the opinion you'll have to live with. If you're constantly making choices to keep other people comfortable, don't be surprised if you wake up one day and realize you've built a life that doesn't actually feel like your own. Here's another reason that I think it's a complete waste of time after you reach 50. Continue to behave like it's too late to start again. If I had a pound for every time I've heard someone over 50 say, I wish I had done this years ago, I'd probably be retired by now. It's one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves, and unfortunately, it's one we start believing. Somewhere after 50, we convince ourselves that certain doors have quietly closed. We tell ourselves it's too late to change careers, too late to start a business, late to learn AI, too late to get fit, or too late to build something completely different. We begin measuring our future by our age instead of our ability, and that's a dangerous way to think. The irony is that we would never say those things to someone else. If a friend told you they wanted to write a book at 58 or start a business at 60, you'd probably be encouraging them. You tell them they have decades of experience, knowledge, and resilience that younger people simply haven't developed yet. Yet, when it comes to ourselves, when it comes to you, my friend, we somehow believe that we are the exception. I nearly fell into that trap myself. After redundancy, it would have been very easy to think my best years were behind me. I'd spent 3 decades building a corporate career, so why would anyone want to listen to me on YouTube? Why would I start learning artificial intelligence at my age? Surely that was for younger people who'd grown up with technology. Thankfully, I didn't listen to that voice. Starting this channel has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Not because it's perfect, not because I have thousands of subscribers, and certainly not because I've got everything figured out, but because it's reminding me every day that growth doesn't stop at 50. The only thing that really changes is the story we tell ourselves. I honestly believe experience is one of the most undervalued assets we have. Younger people might learn faster, but they haven't spent decades managing people, making difficult decisions, recovering from setbacks, or learning how to deal with uncertainty. Those lessons matter. In many ways, they are your competitive advantage. So instead of asking whether you are too old, ask yourself something more useful. If not now, when? Because 5 years from today, you'll either be glad you started or you'll still be wishing you had. Another thing that I consider as a complete waste of time after 50 is living on autopilot. I think this might be the biggest waste of time of them all because it happens so quietly that most of us don't even realize it. Life becomes routine. Monday turns into Friday, one month rolls into the next, and before you know it, another year has gone, has disappeared. You get up, you go to work, you come home, watch TV, go to bed, and repeat the whole process again the following day. There's nothing wrong with routine because routines help us function, but there's a big difference between having routines and living on autopilot. For years, I was busy, and like many other people, I confused being busy with making progress. My diary was always full, my inbox was overflowing, and there was always another meeting or another deadline. Looking back, I can see that while I was productive, I wasn't always intentional. I was reacting to whatever landed in front of me instead of deciding what really deserved my attention. Again, I owe a lot to redundancy because redundancy interrupted that pattern. It forced me to slow down and think about how I actually wanted to spend my days. That's when I realized something that seems obvious now, but never occurred to me back then. Just because something fills your time, it doesn't mean it's adding value to your life. These days, I try to ask myself one simple question every morning. If today was repeated 100 times, would I be happy with the life it created? It's a powerful question because it forces you to think beyond today. One walk probably won't transform your health. One conversation won't transform your relationship. And one video won't transform a YouTube channel. But repeat those choices hundreds of times and they shape the person you become. After 50, I think we have to become much more deliberate about where our days go because our years are simply collections of ordinary days. If we keep living every day on autopilot, we shouldn't be surprised when we wake up wondering one morning where the last decade went. Choose your days carefully because eventually they become your life. As a final thought, when I look back over the last 30 years, I don't really regret the mistakes I've made. Most of them taught me something, and something valuable in most cases. What I regret far more is the amount of time I wasted on things that never deserved it in the first place. I spent too much time waiting for the perfect moment instead of simply go ahead. I allowed my career to become a bigger part of my identity than it should have been. I worried far too much about what other people thought, and like many of us, there were moments when I questioned whether I'd left it too late to begin something new. The good news is that none of us can change yesterday, but every one of us, every one of you out there, gets to decide what happens next. I genuinely believe the second half of life, the second half of your life and my life, can be the most rewarding part, not because it becomes easier, but because we finally begin to understand what's worth holding on to and what we are better off letting go. After 50, the goal isn't to find more time because none of us can do that. The real goal is to stop wasting the time we still have. I would love to know which of these resonated with you the most. Or perhaps there's something else you stopped giving your time to as you've got older. Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and you're trying to make the second half of your life even better than the first one, thank you for watching. Till next time, stay cool and stay focused.